what does success look like to me? What am I driving towards? And those things are very personal. It's amazing what you can accomplish when there's trust in the room. And when you remove that trust, it's remarkable how inefficient you can become.
And when you've got guys around you who are buying into your vision and pushing towards the same thing, it's energizing. All right. Well, welcome back to the Foraged Contractor Alliance podcast. I suck at intros. I don't know. I almost feel like our intros are too formal sometimes.
Okay.
Just got to keep it casual, keep it going. So,
all right. Well, I'm Kenton.
Yeah, this is Kenton. I'm Josh. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
This is exciting. So I got a topic I really want to bring up with you. Because again, this is almost like my own therapy sessions, these podcast recordings, because they're so relevant to what we're going through day to day.
Yeah.
And for me in my position in life, I've been really struggling to, like, my company's 10 years old, and I've really been struggling to do this transition from, you know, just being a roofer to being a businessman to being a CEO per se.
Yeah.
And it actually came to my realization this week that I always look back at the early years. I'm like, why were they so easy? Why did I why was I able to feel like I was functioning at such a high level, never burning out? And it's actually simple. And it's the fact that when you're on the tools and you're working with your crews, everything is trackable and very clear.
Right.
And because when I know exactly how many square are on a job, I know exactly what needs to be done. And if it gets done, you celebrate. It's a clear-cut victory every single day.
Yeah.
The problem is when you transition into having office staff and having an administration and you're running more of a business than just a crew. Yeah. I've struggled with the transition of taking those metrics that are so visible and easy to see day to day and applying them to office staff that I have no idea what they do accomplish day to day. And I think ultimately it's been brought to my attention that it's just like, hey, like, yes, I'm a very trusting person and you need to trust people and delegate and support them in doing their roles. But it's been pointed out to me that I haven't given proper stewardship to my admin people with clear defined roles, followed up by metrics where they own a role and meeting with them weekly and having this agreement in place per se, where it's just like, because when something doesn't get done right now, I just jump on it. I just interject myself into it, and it takes my attention off, again, the things that should be on.
Sure. Because
I'm trying day to day to put out fires, but also fill gaps. Yeah. And there's gaps that are there because I would argue, and I feel like this is a realization that's come forward, that my admin team don't own every component of the business or every role. So I'm finding these roles are showing up, and it's just like, and then even the ones that we do, we don't have proper metrics in place and agreements that's like, hey, this is the target. It's your responsibility to make sure that these targets come in.
Right.
And if they don't, that's your fault. So because I don't have these very clear job roles laid out and not just having the job role, but having, and I think this is really important, that your staff needs to be like, yes, that is my role. Yes, I will achieve that goal. Because I don't have that clearly defined. Yeah. What I'm finding is I have no accountability, or that person has no accountability.
Sure. You can't,
to me and the company.
You can't hold them to something the same way as you could if that's what they are supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
And they know it and you know it.
Yeah. And because there isn't that level of ownership or stewardship that's put onto that individual. Yeah. I struggle to raise a conflict and get upset at anyone. Or maybe I shouldn't even be upset. I don't know, because some things are left so vague in our operations or in our administration that when I actually go to be like, hey, why isn't this done? Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, well, that person, this person, this excuse.
And isn't that your job? Ultimately, what happens then is if something's actually falling right through the cracks, and you know how the pinball machine, like if the ball is just tick, 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 just coming down, that eventually it's going to stop with the owner, or it won't be stopped at all. Yeah. I think about this. So if you look about this in the way that a family runs a household, it's interesting because when you're raising kids, and because I've got 4 kids, it's a huge priority in my life. And we also have a lot of animals, and we have a lot of moving parts. That's what I've often said, is that we've got a lot of moving parts. Very different than when my wife and I were first married and we lived in a loft in downtown Edmonton, and it was like clean. There was very little stuff.
Yeah.
Very few moving parts. Very easy to stay organized and focused. And we were. But the last stage in my life is particularly the last 8 years that we've been on an acreage with a small hobby farm. There's just a lot of moving parts, and it's wonderful. And I don't regret it for a moment, but it definitely takes some management. Mm-hmm. And until we allocated, like, our one son feeds the dogs in the morning. The other son feeds the cats in the morning. Our daughter feeds the goats and the sheep at a certain point. When we have pigs, there's the 2 younger boys take care of the pigs. My older son feeds the dogs in the evening. Like, and the dogs know, like, believe me, because their eyes are for only the person that's going to feed them next, like when it's time to be fed. And in fact, they hear my son when he's coming home from work, they'll pay attention, and they know that he's coming way before we do because they can hear his truck. But there's a rhythm and there's an accountability. And until we did that, man, like, it was a stress, and it wasn't actually nearly as fun as it should be.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that each person always does their task, but basically, because it's a rhythm and it's a discipline. Now, sometimes there's things that get in the way. Sometimes, despite it being a rhythm and a discipline, there will be, forgetfulness or just tiredness or whatever. Sometimes schedules get in the way, those types of things. But as a rule, we know who it belongs to. And what you can do then is like rather than having to ask every kid were the dogs fed, you only got to ask one person.
Yeah.
Which is accountability, right? So then at this point, it's like, and even then, if you're going to do the job, it's understood that now you are covering and filling a gap for one particular person, not for the family as a whole. And I think this relates to a company, because if you are filling a gap, it's okay. Like, you're going to have to do that at times as a business owner. Like, that is part of the gig. And so, but if people just think generically, well, that Josh is just doing what has to be done. It's very different than thinking he's doing my job now because of these things. Mm-hmm. And therefore, but this is not standard, and it's not like he's going to do my job tomorrow, but today, because of this, he's taking care of that.
Yeah. I feel like you said the word management, and I like managers, and management is like very looked down upon, especially this day and age right now.
Sure.
But it's the balance of leadership and management, which I feel is the culprit here, because I want to be a good leader.
Yeah.
I want to be, and part of that's probably actually a negative, where it's almost to my ego, and I want to be, everyone to like me and all that.
Sure.
But
or at the very least, find me handsome.
But there is an element of management that really needs to be implied. And I think, and I've seen that actually in a lot of my contractor buddies who, start their business like almost all of us do, with just yourself on the tools, and you grow your crews to a point where it's just like, guess what, you need to start having office staff. You start 1 or 2, and eventually it inflates to the point kind of like where we're at, where I have like a full-fledged office team.
Yes.
And going from that transition, because again, when you're on the tools, it's easy.
Yeah.
Everything is obvious. If somebody doesn't do something, everyone can see it. It's right there.
Yeah.
And usually when you're working with a team in the same space, somebody will just get to it, because nobody can leave the site till everything is done.
It has to be.
Like day to day, everything has to get done. Whereas with administration and office work, things can get pushed aside.
It's not as visual.
Pushed aside.
Absolutely.
And one thing I've been honestly really struggling with lately is everyone telling me that they're busy.
Sure.
Or like, and I feel like I've almost had this cultural thing, and this probably stems back to me and my own leadership, because I'm jumping on things all the time.
Yeah.
There are seasons where I'm constantly stupid, stressed out, and busy, but I'm not being effective.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my team jump on that, and they're like, oh, Josh is so busy, I need to be busy too. So every time I talk to them, I'm like, oh, how you doing? And they're like, oh my God, I'm just working around the clock. I'm like, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like if you're busy and not effective, that means either I've got you in the wrong role.
Yeah.
Or you're just full of crap.
Sure.
Basically.
Yeah. Or
So
you're wearing it as a badge of honor. And I think that being busy, like there are seasons and granted, like at this exact season, at the end of our, seasonal work, we're pushing because the snow could fly any day, right? Like it's, and once that happens, everything becomes a lot harder for us. And so getting as much done as we can right now is a pretty big deal.
Yep.
Totally. But I think that, so there are seasons when you're definitely busier than others, but I think that I have found myself wearing busyness as a badge of honor and just saying like, my natural comment to people is to roll my eyes when they say, how are you doing? And say, yeah, I'm great. It's just like, wow, like how do I get through? And it's like, that's not actually ideal. It's not ideal to be in that place and for our staff to always be like feeling like they're just right next to the red line. That's not, like cars can't run that way because if you're always close to the red line, it's just a matter of time and you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
And so I think that being productive and being engaged and being busy is great, but being overly busy, it's not excellent.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know what level. I think it really depends on the individual, but
sure.
Like for me in my role, I do my best creative high level work when I'm in a state of rest and I'm well rested.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking, I've gone to Mexico.
Right.
And seriously, the most inspirational times I've had in my entire life are the first times I started going on vacation and shutting off my phone. And guess what I end up doing? I end up working on things I truly love and I think about the business and I start, and I love to do it because my mindset is in a place of rest. And I don't get that until I have no fires to put out, no distractions. And I started recognizing that actually when I was just on vacation and it would take 3 or 4 days into said vacation before I'd start actually being able to find inspiration in my creativity with work.
I mean, I know that there's a rhythm to, and there's a lot of pushback actually online these days from some of these big guys that are running big companies that are saying like the whole idea of life work balance is baloney. If you really want to accomplish something, just dig in and give her. And I get all that. Like, fine, for certain people, maybe that's the way to go. But I think that looking at, long-standing tradition, like observing a Sabbath, which is like 1 day in 7 where you just don't work. These kind of rhythms, and then that's further extended in Jewish tradition of, I believe, for the most part, 1 in 7 years, you really reset as well. And I know some people currently do that where they'll be working at something and they'll literally just take the 7th year off. And wow. That's, and you think, well, wow, that's a crazy waste of time. I don't think so. I think that if you can manage your cash flow, like we've been talking about earlier, and actually set yourself up for that kind of thing, like to take a chunk of time where you can actually like come away from your day to day and allow your brain to get into that space that is much more creative and imaginative. And I mean, I think that when we're talking about our staff, I think that there is like, if the expectation is that we've got to be running close to the red line or else we're not being productive or being useful, I think that the response is always going to be that way. It's like, whoa, I'm just giving her. But if the objective is, this is what I need you to accomplish, do this as efficiently as possible, and let's all celebrate that. Which means that you can actually take time off. Like you can go home at a decent time. Maybe once a week you can get home and surprise people and, have some chores done before people walk through the door or whatever, right? Like I think that there are a lot of ways to create a culture where it's not all just about hair straight back, but I think that it takes some intentionality.
Yeah.
I don't think it's natural. And I think because we have to produce and there's times when you really got to put your shoulder to the wheel, I think that a lot of times our rhetoric reflects that that's what we do all the time, which is just not right.
Yeah. And remembering to have that with your staff too. Like even our crews, it's like, I mean, it helps being a seasonal business because we just have lots of downtime in the winter. So it's like farming, it's hay season. Let's go. Yeah. Like we're working.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think there's a health to that, especially because we have guaranteed downtimes where we can't work. A little bit different though when you're in an office setting or whatever, where you're 12 months a year.
Oh yeah.
Your job never changes.
Yeah.
So it's like and it's almost a distinction of like, I want people to be effective.
Yes.
I don't want you to be busy, because if you're busy and stressed out, you're not doing quality work.
Yeah.
Because I know this from my own life and everybody else that we deal with in life, is when you're ultra busy and ultra stressed out, your output is high, but it's shaky. And you make mistakes.
So
your work's not great.
I would argue that there is a sweet spot for everybody. And I think there's a sweet spot, and what I like to refer to it as momentum. Like, it's the difference. It's not like redlining, but it's like you've got serious momentum. And I remember this analogy from when I was a kid, and it's a really basic one, but like, you can put a brick on a train track, and when the train is sitting there, if you shove it right underneath the wheel like a chalk block, basically, the train can't get going. Like it's at a standstill. You know, if it's a sizable, you know, maybe a small one it could, but anything substantial, it literally won't be able to get going. But once a train's going at the speed that it's intended to go, it can blow through a brick wall without hesitation. Like it'll just go through it. And so having the right cadence, I think figuring out what the right cadence is and then making that your operating zone, I think is really, really critical.
So how do you find that? Or more like, how do you manage that in your people?
Well, I think it takes a bit of awareness. I think that everybody's different. And like when I personally see, and I think that you can see this with teachers, with students, like if you push all your students the same way, like you'll break some people, and other people will be like, come on, give me a challenge. Right. And so I think that like people are very, very different as far as what they can handle. But I think what we often don't see is that, well, okay, here's an example. When I used to train with this dude called Nicky Ferrugia, and if you look him up online, like the guy's a legend. He's an endurance athlete in Malta. That's just like, he's a legend. He's a crazy dude, big talker, but bigger performer, and a lot of fun to compete against. He's the kind of guy that when he would pass me, we trained together for one season in particular for about a year, a lot. And so I got to know him really well. And what we would do when we were training, as I was getting better, because I was younger, he was older. So I was progressing and he was still progressing as well. But he could see me kind of like edging at him a bit. And I was working hard. He would sing as he was coming by me. And he was such a, he was just, and then he would mock me about it later. He's like, you noticed freezing? I was singing as I came by you. I'm like, shut up, Nicky. He's like, you were working. I could hear you working. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I was working. But he had this thing where when we started a workout, and it always freaked me out, like, because I knew his reputation. So when I started working out with him and we had the same coach, he was really intimidating to me because this guy could produce. Like, he had done amazing things. He had done a swim from Sicily to Malta, which is 90 kilometers without stopping. Like, the guy is phenomenal.
Holy
like
cow.
Phenomenal. Like, when I say the guy was a legend, he's a legend. And so just training with him was kind of like, it was intimidating and kind of awe-inspiring, right? And so it wasn't like I was trying to play mind games with him, but I really learned a lot from him. I'm like, if I'm gonna learn from someone, this is the guy I want to learn from. And what would happen is that we'd start our workout, and we did a lot of our most intense workouts on the track, and that's where our coach could really monitor what we were doing, our heart rates and all of those things. Like, he was a Russian coach and very scientific, and was a wonderful coach. And so when we would start working out in our warm up, we were only running like 8-minute miles or whatever. So we weren't working hard at all at that time. And Nicky would always sound like he was just about dying. Like, he would start the workout, and he was a little bit of a heavier athlete. Like, to do those kind of endurance things, you can't be super lean because you need something to draw from. He would just sound like he was laboring. And I would always, like, when I started working out with him, I'm like, wow, I just thought he was stronger than this. And then when we would get into our main set, he would just annihilate me, like just take me out at the knees. And so I guess my point is that you need to understand people quite deeply to know what their optimum cadence is, because it's not always evident up front, and people often have more to give than they know. Yeah. But it's got to be coaxed out of them, I believe, in a way that gives room for them to warm up in what they're doing, to figure it out, and to find a cadence that works. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I see it.
No, it definitely does. And I think the biggest mistake I made, and I'm sure I see actually a lot of people make this, is when they especially are having people come up and do roles that I was previously doing. I just expect them to be another version of me and have the same energy as me, the same capacity as me.
Yeah.
And we'll just do things like they're me.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is if I expect them to do things the way that me would do it, they're probably going to suck at it. And if you find a way to support somebody in their gifting and the way they do things and find their flow, they can. It took a few years, but some of my guys now kick my butt. And I used to think my way was, it was my way or the highway because I had my crap figured out.
Yeah.
But, some of these people, you give them space and they find that momentum.
Totally.
Way better than, there's many roles in my company that I thought I had figured out.
Yeah.
And I did for myself.
Sure.
But lo and behold, you let people find their own groove, their own momentum, and I don't even want to touch some areas now because they're way better than I am.
Yeah, and if you do, you're going to mess it up.
Yeah, but at the start there, I had this really piss poor mentality, and it caused a lot of grief for the overall culture of the company, where it was just like, this is how you do it. You do it my way because I know my way works.
Sure.
And it did work.
Sure.
But it was just for me.
Well, and I think that recognizing that takes a certain level of humility. Because to draw out the best in people, and it's interesting, like, because that's kind of what we're talking about here, is like, how do we become a catalyst in someone's life? Like, how do we draw out what's best in them? And sure, in a business sense, it's so that the whole machine drives better and so that we're more efficient and we're better as a company, etc. Like, for sure that's an objective. But if done well, there's spin-offs into your life as well. Because if you're doing well at your day job, there's a certain posture that's associated with that. And there's a certain confidence that comes through that, which I think it can be really positive in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, if I see someone that I've hired that is unsure of who they are, because often I hire quite young guys, they're unsure of who they are. They're unsure of what their capacity is. They're unsure of what their learning ability is. Because, like, just because you might be challenged learning in school in a normal academic setting doesn't mean anything about your actual ability to learn in life. A lot of people, or very little, like, I don't think there's a great correlation there. And in fact, many of the top performers in life are C students, and it's, they make it, but they don't make it well. And I don't think that that's an accident. I think that learning is something that academics is only one side of it. And I think that people can often, in the right job, with the right coaching, encouragement, sometimes it's just the right space, give them the space to operate, and they're going to find a groove. And I know, like, looking at people that I love and looking at people that have hired them, I can see, like, if you know somebody well, you can sense their potential. When someone hires them, they will not necessarily see that immediately. What my prayer is always is, like, give this person the grace to come into that zone, and at least give them the, if it's a decent role, if I feel like it's a decent role for them, I just hope that they'll be given the chance to actually start to shine.
Yeah.
And that's not always possible. Like, not all roles are right for people. If hiring is done poorly, I think that you can set people up for failure before they even start. But we're not actually talking about that here. We're talking about people who are the right people in their roles, who you're confident in their abilities, but it's a matter of how do you keep them healthy and growing and producing in a way that is long-term stable, as well as just positive for them as people.
Well, and motivating them to stay out of the busy culture and into the, again, more effective momentum mindset. And a lot of this actually causes stress on me because, again, I just said, a lot of these people I was just talking about, they're in roles that they do infinitely better than me.
Sure.
But I have days because I don't have the proper metrics and stuff in place. So I'm like, what are you doing right now?
Yeah.
Or it's like I get a call, can you handle this appointment? I'm like, that's not supposed to be my job. Why?
Sure.
Oh, well, this person's booked up. It's just like, doing what? Like, and this is where I really think there's something to, like, having clear metrics for your staff, because even though they're doing their job, and they're well suited to it, if you don't have clear metrics, then there's that no accountability. And when people are telling you, "Oh, I'm busy," it's just like, okay, but doing what? Like, I don't understand what your day looks like.
There's also the danger as well of plateauing at that point. You know what I mean? Like if they're kind of falling between the cracks and they're doing their job well, that's good, but there may not be growth if there's not proper metrics. And I think that one of the reasons that people love the business game is because money gives you a metric, you know, and so overall in a business, it's pretty easy to tell whether you're healthy or not, is if you're going in the right direction that way. And that's oversimplified, but as a rule. And I think sports, one of the reasons that we love it, it's clear, is because the metrics are simple.
Yeah.
Like the metrics are there and you know the metrics in real time. Like you can see it unfold, which is wonderful.
And there's a clear winner and a clear loser.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in those places where it's clearly evident, it's easy to notice growth. Because like if you're doing endurance athletics and you've run a marathon in 3:05 this year and you run it in 2:55 the next year, you know that you're not wasting your time. You know that you're actually progressing.
Yeah.
Whereas in a business role, if you're running a 3:05 this year and you're running a 3:15 next year, that's a lot harder to know unless there's really clear metrics.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is in order to support growth,
I think so.
Like as a company, but also for these people individually.
Absolutely.
You need those metrics.
And when you're working alongside someone who is growing, man, there is so many wonderful spin-offs. Yeah. Like when you're all growing together, and again, using the analogy of my acreage and just what grows in my acreage, like everything comes up together. Like there's this explosion of life in the spring. And I think that when you see an explosion of life, it's easy to get excited and to just like really embrace that and enjoy it. And if you're alongside someone who is plateaued, there's a negative effect. If you're alongside someone who is like clearly doing worse and worse as the days go by, man, that's a really frustrating place to be.
Yeah.
And so as a rule, you want your staff to be growing together. And if that's possible, and of course, and I think that this is something that we've brought up before and we'll bring up again, but there are seasons in life where someone will go through something, particularly in their personal life, or they'll hit a road, like a bump in the road. What do they call it in, there's variety, but like a speed bump, basically. There are seasons for that. And so I'm not referring to like a straight line growth, because straight line growth is just not, it's not a practical way of assessing where people are at. In fact, when it comes to investing in stocks, I have this like thing. If a stock really spikes one day, really good chance it's going to come down a bit the next. Like that's just normal. Yeah. There's an ebb and flow, but overall you want to see growth. And if you're alongside people that are overall growing, man, it's what a wonderful place to be.
Yeah. It's where I want to be.
It totally is.
That's who I want people around me to be.
Absolutely.
Like even in my circle of friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
The kind of people I want to be around, because then they're going to be encouraged. Like if you're around a group of people who are growing and you yourself aren't, you're going to feel awkward.
Yeah.
They're going to drag you along with them.
You'll either feel shame or you'll feel inspired.
Yeah.
You know,
hopefully the latter.
Yeah. And if it's a shame, then you're just going to end up not hanging out. And you know, in fairness, like I've had moments like that in my life where I remember when social media first came out, I wasn't an early adopter of that kind of stuff, and I'm still not on social media. So it's just not really my world. But at first I intentionally wasn't on it because I was embarrassed about where I was at, compared to where I felt like a lot of my friends that I grew up with were. Like a lot of them were just really killing it. And I was not at that particular moment. Like I had been through some like pretty rocky speed bumps in my business life. And so I just didn't want to be visible. And that's a horrible response to seeing your friends doing well. Like it really is.
Yeah.
And very quickly I realized, man, I got to celebrate successes, because part of celebrating successes is that it also inspires you.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, in celebrating successes, that's something that we also need to do with our staff.
Totally.
And again, something
it's
not
important.
Good at.
I think that even with our kids sometimes, like with our families, with the people that we love, I think it's easy to place emphasis on the areas that we need to improve on. And in the areas where we've just found a really neat groove and it's just moving and there's synergy and there's optimism, we often just don't take the time to celebrate those things. Yeah. And one of the sayings that I've been meditating on over the last while is that we all will suffer. Suffering is guaranteed.
Yeah.
We will not all have joy. Joy is a choice. And suffering is not a choice. We will all suffer. We all do suffer in different ways.
Some element,
but joy is a choice. And you can either go through life in the absence of that, or you can actually say, hey, this is something worth pursuing.
Interesting.
And it's something for me that, I can be fairly melancholy at times. And for me, it's something that every once in a while I just need to remind myself, like, hey, joy in this circumstance is a choice.
Yeah.
And growing alongside people that express joy in their growth, man, that's just wonderful.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And that's a synergy that we want to see. And I don't think it comes cheap. Like I say, I think that, like my example of my buddy, Nikki, I just think that you got to know people. And that means there's a certain investment that you've got to make in people to understand. And maybe it's not directly you, maybe it's your manager or other, leaders in your company. You have to trust these people enough to recognize that, they understand how to manage this individual to bring the best out of them. And I think that also takes a certain amount of humility.
I actually find though that the trust component, because I do trust everybody. And that's the thing is I don't want to ask anybody, hey, what were you actually doing yesterday? Because I don't want them to feel like I don't trust them.
Yeah.
And it's I'm not afraid of conflict.
Sure.
Well, I guess in some sense I am. There's that element of, because when I'm trying to, motivate people or just get a feel of how my office staff is doing, or my sales guys and site visits and everything.
Yeah.
It's the last thing I want is for people to feel like I don't trust them.
Sure.
So and I do think actually saying it, if you don't have those metrics and those clear stewardship agreements in place, this is my role, I own this.
Yeah.
If you question on them without that, I do think it would infringe on that trust.
Yeah. Particularly depending on how you phrase the question as well.
Yeah.
But I think there's a way to ask someone where you feel guilty before you've answered, even if there's no guilt associated. I know sometimes I felt like that. It's I get asked a question. I'm like, is this an accusation or a question? And I think if it comes across the wording can be a question, but the tone can be an accusation. And I think that is a hard thing to answer, especially to a boss. It's you're telling me that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And that's where metrics come in super handy.
Yeah.
And just avoid that awkwardness. And I think some people have the gift to be able to ask those questions in a way that doesn't come across that way. But I think most of us don't. I'm
not one of those people.
I don't think most of us are.
No. Everyone already accuses me of being intimidating. I wonder why. Maybe I don't know why. But
that's funny.
But it's a hard challenge. It's you don't want to hurt feelings or affect your culture or be a micromanaging boss.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when there are clear shortcomings, in your team,
or if there's perceived ones. I think that sometimes they are shortcomings. Sometimes some people will take a different way around to achieve a certain goal.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and this again is if their style is very different than yours to accomplish the same thing, and they're getting there, but sometimes like an example of that is there's different ways to put a puzzle together. And some people will do it from one angle and some people another. Some people will want to make sure that you can see the progress as they go. Other people are not so worried about that. They know that they're getting there and they see the pieces coming together, but it takes almost till the end till that happens. And so I think that sometimes there's a lack of achievement. Other times there's a perceived lack. And I think that if it's a perceived lack and people are come down hard on, I think that's really destructive.
Yeah. Yeah,
because they can actually be doing what they've been asked to do, but in a different way, and it can actually be working. But if they're not given that breathing space, then they'll give up.
But what an unnecessary level of, because I think that you just nailed exactly what I'm feeling right now. It's because I'm I have this stress. Are these people performing?
Yes.
They're saying they're performing?
Yes.
Or is this just me?
Yeah.
And again, without the metrics.
Yeah.
I'll always have that question. Even especially when the results aren't there.
Well, and I think, and I mean, it could be argued that from the way that we're talking is that metrics are the answer to everything. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that the right metrics can be extremely beneficial.
Helpful. Yeah.
I think that the wrong metrics can be destructive. And so I think setting up the right goals that work, and then also being able to reevaluate those goals with your staff to make sure that these are actually the right metrics to reflect what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't mean so that they can weasel out of work. I mean, like, this is clearly our objective. Are these metrics helpful?
Yeah.
And I think that when those are fine-tuned and in place, yeah, they're absolutely indispensable. But if the metrics are wrong, again, assuming that this is our goal and you want to go straight here, but someone's approach is this way, which frankly is sometimes more efficient. Like they say, sometimes the longest way around is the shortest way home. Like that, you can go over the mountain or you can go around the mountain. Sometimes around the mountain's better.
Yeah.
And so, if that's the case, then the metrics have to make room for that.
Yeah.
And which I guess you could say timing of metrics also matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you say, well, these are the goals that we need to hit, it's not necessarily the same goal every month. Maybe some months that goal has to shift. Maybe some, in some time periods, depending on what your company's doing, depending what the economy's doing, maybe there's some shifting that has to happen, but the end goal is something that needs to be accomplished in order for, there to be health.
Yeah. I mean, results speak for themselves too. I mean, that's one of the biggest metrics I guess you can look at. So if we take metrics out of the equation, what else can we be looking at in terms of dealing with our staff and keeping accountability? Is it possible to do so without said metrics?
I think that metrics make it simpler. I think that if you are a person who really understands people extremely well and catches a lot of nuance, you might be able to keep people on track and healthy and growing very well without a lot of metrics. But I would argue that as soon as you have a personal bump in the road where you're distracted by a loss in the family or, a hard season in a relationship or, just things, or just get absolutely swamped in your business because of something that just, because it's seasonal or whatever. I think that in those moments, if you don't have the metrics, there's going to be times when people will wander or wonder or both. Because I just think that there is, you're asking a lot of yourself, and I think very similar to the discussion we had around cash flow, if you don't have any budgeting, you're asking a lot of yourself to be aware enough without a budget to know where your ship is at. And I think that when it comes to people, if it's not clear if they don't understand clearly, and if you don't understand clearly where they're meant to go, and it's all just kind of soft, I think that can break down when there's pressure.
Yeah. So you need metrics overall. The reason I ask that is because, until you grow to a certain point where you have a CRM who actually is spitting out all the metrics for every role in your office, sometimes metrics aren't even an option.
No, I disagree. I think they are an option, but I think that they're just more crude.
Like, how do you track them?
Like here's the thing, right? And I'm going back to my endurance roots just because there's some analogies here. Like what you're doing is you're running miles or kilometers, but you may not know exactly when you're passing the mile or kilometer markers, but when you pass the telephone pole. And so the telephone pole is very rudimentary. Like you don't know what that means from a distance. You haven't measured it out, but you know that if you're seeing that pole and now it was in front of you and now it's behind you, it's a metric. It's just a crude one. Yeah. And so I think that we can easily make excuses for not having the proper information. But if you think about it, like, it's only been recently where a CRM is even a thing.
True.
Right? Like, true. And people have been using metrics in business for hundreds and thousands of years. Like it's just that they may not be as sophisticated metrics. But again, I would argue that some people were able to find, some people have unique capacity and unique ability to do those things. So I wouldn't argue. We have historical bias. Often we think that people are all stupid in the past. I just don't think that. I think there's a lot of brilliant minds that did brilliant things. So I think that there might have been very sophisticated metrics in business in the past, but I wouldn't even, I'm not a historian that way, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what that is. But I think that we can often use it as an excuse and say, well, we don't have the information, so therefore we can't have proper metrics. I think you can. But I think like a lot of things, they may just have to come out of the fog as you develop.
That's hard though, isn't it? Because I'm even thinking like phone calls, follow-ups. How do you track your people doing follow-ups and customer contact and all that without actually like sitting there behind their shoulder counting every time they send a text, email, or make a phone call? Like some things are, sales is a bit easier because sales, I mean, that's very evident. You track your sales numbers like based on the amount of revenue that's signed contracts and stuff like that. But there are some roles that are, to me, a little bit tricky to try and.
Yeah, I don't think it's that difficult. I mean, these days it's easy to track what someone does on their phone. And so, like, I don't think it's, and again, it might be somewhat crude, but yeah, I think it's actually not that hard to track some of these things, at least rudimentarily. And I think that again, you've got to ask yourself, how micro do you want to be in your metrics? Like at what point, what point does this now become invasive and not helpful? And I think that, micromanaging has gotten a massively bad rap. And I don't think it's always bad. I think that sometimes, at least in a growing process, you have to micromanage through to macro management. Like I think that there is that. Yeah. I don't think that micromanagement is evil of itself. I think that it's a bad place to stay because it means there's no trust in your organization. But I think that often you have to micromanage at least for a season because it's like, this is what it looks like. This is how it feels.
Well, there's a training phase that they, as long as there's any form of training and learning, then you're teaching. It's not so much micromanaging.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gray line. I think that it can cross over. I think that, but I think that after someone's established in their job, you don't want to have to go to those micro levels. But overall, I think that you can get a pretty good sense. And I think, I often did really small things with my crew when I was, training a lot of young guys. I'm not doing quite as much these days, but I know that if I would have to leave the job site for any length of time, and this is not admin staff, but it's the same type of thing. I would leave the job for a while, for whatever reason, had a business meeting to go to, or sometimes even just going to the landfill or whatever. And I would make a really, really, really careful note of where things were at when I left and where things were at when I got back. And it told me a ton about the character of the person, about the momentum that they carried, because I knew the way that they were working before I left. I knew what they should get done approximately. And if they surprised me, it was always awesome because I'm like, okay, something's cool here. If they would surprise me, like really genuinely surprise me, I was like, this person's going to have a great career. Because it means that there's some motivation in them that's not just about being looked at and micromanaged essentially, but it's like in them. And I think those kind of indications are actually quite easy if you pay attention. And it may not be specific metrics. And I'll never forget one day I had this guy, and the funny thing is that all season I called him Hank, and I don't actually know what his real name was. But he worked with me for a whole season. I may have mentioned this before. I just think it's funny, but it's just one of those things. And we were doing a townhouse complex, so it was a large roof one day, and he loved to rip. It was just his favorite thing. He didn't like to install so much, but he just loved taking off shingles. It was his thing, and he was strong and he was fast. And I can remember I came back from the landfill this one time, and there was a crowd of people watching him. They were standing below the roof and just watching him. And I came up and I looked, and it was like he had ripped off, like it was, I couldn't have done it ever at my best, my peak. There's no way I could have ripped off that amount in that time. And I came up and he's just sweating and loving it because now he's putting on a show. and I mean, it's an extreme example, but I think that, there are metrics there that are not always easy to put on paper, but you'll sense. And I think being aware of those things and just paying attention also, it works.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And we celebrated that.
Yeah, I would hope so.
It was great.
It sounds like a show.
Yeah, and it also humbled me. I'm like, oh, that's great.
It's always good to be humbled a little bit once in a while.
No, it's good. Yeah, and I think overall, I think like the discussion of how do I become a catalyst in this person's life for the good, overall. I think what a wonderful discussion.
Yeah.
You know, like it's worthwhile. And we don't do it perfectly. So it's something that paying attention and wrestling with it is critical. Because I don't think we'll ever get to the point where we're like, man, we nail it with everybody when it comes to this. Like, that's just never going to happen.
Yeah. But even what you just said, like, even the overall topic of growth, it's like when people are working with me, it's like, I really want to see growth in them as an individual.
Yeah.
And just like being like we as parents want to see our kids grow up and be successful.
Yeah.
The main thing that we do that with is with accountability, and like we teach them, but they're accountable to us.
Yes.
And I really, really believe that if we don't find the ways to keep that accountability in our staff, they themselves will really struggle to grow.
But we also focus on facilitation. And facilitation, another big topic that we'll maybe just close down on, but I feel like facilitation is not exactly the same as accountability, but that is just seeing the aptitudes and providing whatever it takes for those aptitudes to grow. Different topic. We'll hit it one day soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. That was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
All right. And thanks again, everybody, for listening. We're appreciating just the time that you're giving us, and it means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll see you on the next one.